is Samie, and we're the co-founders of Bustld, B-U-S-T-L-D, and we are bringing you the Everyday in Bustling show. So excited to have you guys here, where we're going to be talking about some wedding planning topics. Today in particular is going to be the bar package, a really fun topic as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. We obviously weren't properly prepared, though. We have no cocktails.
No, we don't. I think we're going to have to do better prep next time.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's important. That would definitely make it for a more fun show.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, again, excited to talk about this because it is something that is really impactful when it comes to the guest experience, when it comes to the budget, and really just the flow. So I think this will be a good one.
I agree.
Okay, perfect. So let's get started. One of the first things that I think when you first start diving into this vendor category is going to be the question of wine, beer, and or liquor.
Right.
Where do you begin?
So I think most people have an idea of maybe what they want. So whether you want to have wine and beer, or a full bar with wine, beer, and liquor, or maybe no bar at all.
Or a signature cocktail.
Or a signature cocktail. So there's lots of variations. But obviously, budget can make a big impact on that. So, just kind of depends as you start to look at things. Wine and beer are going to be a more cost-effective option, whereas beer, wine, liquor is going to be a little more pricey. So that might be a big impact on which one you choose. And then as far as how it affects the guest experience, the wine and beer, tends to be maybe a little less rowdy of a party. Not always, but sometimes. Whereas, wine and beer and liquor can kind of up the game on the rowdiness, once you throw liquor in there.
Sure.
But I think the nice part about having a full bar is obviously you're giving your guests, that kind of full guest experience. They can come, they can have the drink of their choice. There's no kind of limitations of just wine and beer if you're, only drink vodka, which is obviously a nice to have to offer to your guests.
Sure. And so one of the biggest drivers there is budget.
100%. Yeah. I think budget, and then also, if a lot of people are concerned they don't want their guests to drink too much or,
Sure.
be acting crazy on the dance floor later in the night. So I think those two factors are probably the two biggest things that you're going to want to discuss with each other and anyone else who's contributing to the wedding before you kind of decide which path you want to go down.
Some people don't need liquor to act crazy on the dance floor. So I don't really know what you meant by that.
That's right.
So it kind of segued from there, when you're looking at the different options, there's really kind of three core, right? There's open bar, there's cash bar, and then there's BYO.
Right.
Could you share a little bit first about the open bar and some of the advantages of having an open bar?
So open bar is, definitely the most guest-friendly, let's say, because your guests arrive, they put their purse down, they never have to bring out their wallet or anything like that because everything's paid for them. So it's really like you've welcomed them into your home and they have access to your bar and they can drink whatever they want that night, whatever your choices are, wine, beer, or maybe liquor too.
Especially someone like you who forgets their wallet.
That's right.
Weird.
So, yeah. Convenient. So, that's obviously a huge advantage of having the open bar, for sure.
Okay. And then what are some of the disadvantages of having an open bar?
Price is probably the biggest one because you are going to have a higher price point when you're looking at an open bar versus a cash bar or BYO, where it's going to be a little more friendly on the wallet.
Okay. Or the rowdiness.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Okay. So then kind of segueing there from the kind of the options that you have consumption and then you have price per head.
Right.
Could you elaborate a little bit on those two and some of the things that the couple should be thinking about?
Sure. So those are both going to give your guests access to what appears to be an open bar, right? They have no idea necessarily which way you're paying. Per head is going to be exactly like it sounds. You're going to pay the cost per head for every guest that's in attendance that's over 21. Whereas consumption, you're going to pay based on what's actually drank that night. So with consumption, it's great if you don't have a group of heavy drinkers or maybe the cocktails are pretty inexpensive price-wise at your venue or with your caterer. So that can be kind of an advantage to that. With the per head cost, if you think you don't have a lot of big drinkers, then maybe consumption makes sense. But a lot of times people drink more than maybe you think or, than they do Friday night when you're out at dinner at a wedding. So they might surprise you. So with consumption, you can kind of have that surprise cost of, wow, people drink that much, whereas per head, it doesn't matter if they drink 1 drink or 7 drinks, it's going to be the same price for you. So that that's kind of your cap of how much money you've spent, which is obviously a big benefit because you've budgeted for it and you know exactly how much money you're going to spend. Another thing to think about too is, guests don't know how you're paying. So they may get a drink from the bar, put it down, go to the restroom, forget about their drink, and then go back up to the bar and get another drink. So with consumption, you can be paying for multiple drinks even if they don't finish them. So that can be a little frustrating if you're, watching people just leave discarded drinks around, so, and you're paying that way.
Have you ever? You've done so many weddings.
Yeah.
Have you? And you've gone kind of both options here. Have you ever had couples that went on consumption and then they really should have gone with price per head? Or are you so amazing as a planner that couldn't possibly happen?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
No, we tend to push our couples towards open, per head cost if
they're going open bar.
If they're going open bar, just because you have that set fee, unless you really, really know that, like, hey, half of my family does not drink, in which case then you're always going to come out ahead on consumption. Because with per head, you're paying, if you have 100 guests over 21, you're paying 100 guests over 21.
Right.
And if only 50 of those guests are absolutely going to drink, then you're wasting money. So then in that case, I think that's the discussion to have. How many people are really honestly not going to drink?
Okay. And then, so question for you then. So in this scenario, if you were having like a brunch wedding or a Sunday or a midweek, that would be an example.
That's a great example for a consumption bar would make sense because most likely people are not going to drink as heavily as they would at a Saturday night party. Again, your group best, right? But so maybe they want to get after it at brunch. But generally, at brunch, people will have 1 or 2 cocktails. And so at that point, you want to kind of look at the price. Is it $10 a drink and the price per head is $20, for 4 hours? So in that case, it would make sense just to go per head because, most people are maybe going to have 1 or 2. Whereas if the drinks are only $5, it might make sense to just go with that consumption route. So look at what the price for the drink is, and then think about your guest count and how heavily they're going to drink.
That makes sense. And then in terms of the next one, cash bar. What are some of the advantages of a cash bar?
So I think budget is a huge advantage of the cash bar because you're not having to kind of take that cost out of your budget. Your guests are coming and they're going to pay for that. So that's something that can be really good if you're on a super tight budget. Okay.
And then obviously the disadvantages of that are your guests have to pay.
Yeah. And also, a question to ask your venue or catering team or whoever's providing the bartender, is it actually a cash bar? So a lot of cash bars, you have to literally have cash. They don't take credit cards.
I'd be in trouble.
A lot of people would be in trouble. So that's something that you want to definitely communicate, or if it is a cash bar, is there an ATM or a guest going to be leaving to go to an ATM? So those are kind of logistics to think about if you're going to go that route. It definitely adds, if it's cash only, it definitely adds some kind of blocks for your guests to get a drink. And if that's important to you, then it's something to think about.
Makes sense. I assume the answer is somewhat similar, but what are some of the advantages of bring your own?
Again, budget, right? So if you can bring your own, you're paying for that yourself, which is usually much cheaper, just like as if you went to a restaurant. A bottle of wine in a restaurant is going to cost more than it does at the liquor store. So it's the same thing with the wedding. It's going to cost more than it would at the liquor store. So when you can go and buy that. I think another benefit of bringing your own is that you get to bring what you want to. So it's not kind of like, these are our selections, this is our vodka option. You can pick the vodka of your choice, which is really nice if you like a specific brand, or maybe you like really nice wine and you want to bring, wine from your collection or something like that. So that can be kind of the benefit of bringing your own.
Or even buying like one bottle for one or a couple of different people that that they drink. It can be more custom or curated of sorts.
100%, yeah.
Another thing that I think is kind of cool about bring your own, not that I'm advocating for it, but I think a cool advantage is that you could actually hire a mixologist that could come in and actually make something more than, a vodka tonic.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you can do that too with, other types of bar. It's just you have to talk to your venue and caterer and find out what your options are, but that's going to be much more likely with a bring your own own situation.
Right.
Kind of the disadvantages of that, though, is that you have to literally bring your own. So,
Right.
like who's going to bring it, who's going to ice it down, who's going to have the car big enough, you have to buy it, make sure, if you run out of champagne, you're out. There's not going to be kind of a backlog of champagne in the venue's closet like there is with the other 2 bar options.
Right.
So once you're out, you're out. So you want to overbuy. So you want to make sure that when you're buying it, you find out, is there kind of a return policy, or what are you going to do with all these bottles if there's leftovers? And then at the end of the night, you not only did you have to bring it, you now have to take it with you.
Right.
So there's a lot of like logistics and very DIY elements of bringing your own, of course.
And I think one of the other concepts to really think about here too is really liability, because I know that we've attended weddings where people that had offered BYO, and people took it upon themselves to take the drinks with them as a party favor. Not that that was what was intended, which is interesting. But it's from a liability standpoint. How does that affect the couple?
So definitely, a few things to think about with you're bringing your own. You definitely want to hire a licensed bartender. Most, I would say, probably 99% of venues will require you to still hire a licensed bartender to actually serve that alcohol. And then you also need to find out, like, what is the liquor license? So, does your venue have a liquor license? Does your caterer, do you need to get a liquor license? What's that, application process look like? How long does it take? So those are all things you have to think about when you're kind of supplying it yourself. Whereas if you have a caterer who's bringing in the alcohol, they bring their own liquor license, they're bartenders, they're taking care of all that, and then that liability is with them. So it's definitely something to think about, because obviously when liquor is involved, there's a lot of liability, and you want to make sure everyone drinks responsibly and stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, perfect. And then another option is having a dry wedding. Yeah. If you're having a dry wedding, what are some things that you should consider?
So it's definitely another option to consider, especially if budget is tight or maybe you just don't drink. So both of those options make it a very good option for your wedding then.
Especially for the budget.
Yeah, especially for the budget. But you want to make sure that you think about your guests. Are they going to bring their own alcohol? Because usually if they do, they could be kicked out of your wedding because of that liability like we talked about. Because if it's not supplied by someone, then they could lose their liquor license. So think about that. Make sure you're communicating that to your guests. And then make sure you also know your guests. Are they going to get out on the dance floor without any liquor in their, without any alcohol in their system? If the answer to that is no, and dancing is really important to you, that's definitely something to think about.
Okay, perfect. So, that's a lot of great information. Yeah. So, again, thank you for sharing.
Of course.
As far as, when our couples always ask the same thing, right? When our couples turn this off and they get back to planning and kind of digging in, what are some of the best next steps for them to take when it comes to bar packages?
So to have that discussion, with the two of you and anyone who's contributing to the budget, sometimes parents might be contributing to the budget and they have a hard say on, we only want beer and wine, or we must have a full bar, or whatever those options are. So talk through that with everybody who's involved and just get their opinion. And then talk to whoever's providing the liquor or your venue and find out what your options are. So what are your price point options? And then you can start kind of playing with the different options of consumption or cash or bring your own and decide what fits best in your budget.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. We can't wait to continue to bring you some of this amazing planning advice.